Welcome to the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. This podcast is dedicated to helping book lovers discover new authors. Like all the best bookshops, this podcast is filled with all kinds of books and all kinds of authors. So tune in, browse around, find a new author, and discover a new favorite book at the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. I'm Stacey Horan, author, book lover, and host of the Bookshop at the End of the Internet. This is episode number 258. For more information about this or any of our episodes, go to my website, staceyhoran.com. If you enjoy the podcast, leave us a review, like us on social media, and share us with your friends, family, and fellow readers. In today's episode of the Bookshop at the End of the Internet, I'm continuing with the second and final installment in a series featuring my interviews with members of the First Coast romance writers. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, number 257, I encourage you to go back and give it a listen. For those who have, you'll remember that these interviews were conducted as part of a workshop I presented at a working retreat of the First Coast romance writers. 9 of the authors in attendance sat down with me to record brief interviews for this podcast, and these conversations have been curated into 2 parts. This is part 2. In today's episode, I'm featuring the final 4 interviews from my visit with the First Coast romance writers. As in part 1, we'll discuss their books, and they'll share a little bit about their writing journeys, as well as a few other things. Coming up. As I mentioned in the prior episode, my conversations with the First Coast romance writers feature authors at varying stages of their journeys. Some have written numerous books, others are just getting started, but all of them were eager to share their stories with me. These interviews were recorded on site, so the sound is a little different than what you would normally hear in my studio recordings. First up is Melody Johnson. Melody has been a guest on the podcast on 3 previous occasions. Check out episodes 30, 84, and 177. Chatting with Melody is always good fun. Here is our latest conversation. Melody Johnson, thank you very much for chatting with me today on the podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So we have talked before.
Yes,
we have talked about your first series and your second series, but I'm curious to follow up with you on your Love Beyond series because now it's now finished. So for people who aren't familiar, who might not have checked out those episodes previously, can you tell us a little bit about the Love Beyond series?
Yes, so book 1 is Beyond the Next Star, and it is about a human who is abducted by aliens and mistaken as a pet. And the hero in that story is Torek. He's an alien, and on his planet, he is a military commander on military leave because he has PTSD. And so he is assigned an animal companion to help him heal. And that happens to be the heroine.
So a slight twist on that, like a animal service dog.
Yes, exactly. And she, she is playing into that role. In the very beginning, she witnesses a murder. She believes it's her fault the person was murdered because they were trying to reveal the truth about her being a human. And so, so she has decided that in order to evade that person's suspicion, that she is going to lean into and pretend to be the pet. So there's a lot of hilarity that ensues because of that.
Right. And that was the first book.
Yes.
Beyond the Next Star. How about book 2?
Yeah, so Sight Beyond the Sun. It has a fresh romance between also another female human heroine and alien male hero. Another alien abduction, but this time it's a little bit more military-esque. The hero is kind of undercover. And so he abducts a bunch of humans to try to bring back to his father. And so he's doing these evil acts because he's undercover, because he feels like he has to in order to stay undercover. But the heroine doesn't know any of that. She just knows that she's been abducted by aliens, and she tries to instigate a prison riot to get all the humans on her side. They're going to band together and take over the ship. And little does she know that by doing that, she's going to foil his plans, which will, as things unfold, things are revealed, and that would actually work out poorly for her.
Interesting. So this series was a departure from your first one. It's still in the realm of romance coupled with sort of a fantastical element. So you had vampires in the first one.
Yep.
Now we've got aliens, and it's more of a sci-fi leaning series in the second one.
It is. And the two books, although they're separate romances, and you can read them separately. You don't have to read them, in order. But if you were to read them in order, you would kind of see little Easter eggs of how things are tied together. So, some people, like to know that up front and enjoy discovering those, details.
Right. What is it about these kinds of stories, taking, let's say, romance or any sort of storyline and setting it or populating it with characters who aren't human? What's the draw for you? And then what do you think the draw is for readers?
Personally, I love world building. World building is this second to the romance, but it's one of my favorite parts of romance is the world building. And so when I was writing vampires, that paranormal element was getting to, discover their culture and build, everything, their history as vampires. And so then taking it to a whole nother level with the aliens, now not only do I get to build a whole new culture, I've got a whole planet to build, a whole language, a whole anatomy for some of my heroes, which can be fun to play with. So yeah, I really enjoy exploring all of that world building.
Do you do that before you start writing the manuscript? Is all of that work done up front, or do you do it as needed as you go through?
I would say a good majority of it is done up front. I'm very character driven, and so I'm always thinking about how my hero and heroine foremost as a pair, and then also my villain, and how all of their motivations and their conflicts are all going to either help buoy each other up or really going to conflict with one another. And then building on that, as I build out the character, especially the hero in these cases, on another planet, the setting, how his culture has influenced him as a person, how the climate of that planet has influenced maybe how his anatomy, so I enjoy, that's how kind of like I build it out from there. But I get some surprises along the way. So I think I know everything. And as the characters start to interact, it's like, well, actually, this is what's going on the planet as well.
Right. Right. Do you find, because as you mentioned, you do hands up with some surprises. Do you find that these characters end up taking over the story for you, or are you a writer who can sit down with an outline or have a plot in mind and stick to it regardless of what the characters are saying to you?
I usually, I try to stick to the plan. And I usually have, what I think I know are my kind of like turning points, the major plot points that I think that I'm going to be heading towards. But every once in a while in every book, there's usually like at least 2 chapters that either I thought was going in a certain direction or I try to force it and it's just not coming off as authentic, or I don't like what they're saying, or I don't like how they're acting. And I have learned, at least for myself, to just let it go and write the next scene that I definitely know is going to happen and that I'm looking forward to writing. And so if I let it go, just continue on. And more often than not, I'll get a few more chapters in. And then all of a sudden, that's what was supposed to happen. I had it wrong, from the beginning, and then I tweak it, and then I can write what was supposed to happen.
Interesting. So you don't necessarily always have to stick to sort of a linear approach?
Not always. I mean, I typically do, but if I start to feel like I'm having a bit of writer's block or I don't like what's happening, I'll just stop and I'll just jump to a different part that I can already envision, because I want to have fun with it. I don't want to struggle with it. And the couple times that I have just written the scene anyway, I end up scrapping it, or I'm just not happy with it because it wasn't what was supposed to be written.
Right.
So.
Right. Do you find, when you're writing these stories, that it's easy to get overwhelmed by the world that you've built? Because as you mentioned, you write character-driven stories. Mm-hmm. So the story itself always comes back to that that smaller story of the characters rather than the bigger, more massive story of what's happening in the world or the planet or whatever. Do you have to do sort of a gut check? Does it happen without you really realizing it? Like it feels like I've spent too long talking about big things, need to bring it back to the small things? Or do you discover the imbalance, say, in editing?
I would say in editing, because sometimes sometimes all the time, I love going on and on about my, the setting and what's going on, the mountain peaks and the way the light is drizzling off the waterfall, off of the, and it looks like fangs. Like I get very flowery sometimes, and I enjoy myself doing that. Yeah. And so in editing though, and I write a lot. Like my first drafts are really long, like over, 120,000 words.
Oh gosh.
And so it's, hammer time to like really weed out the, get out the weeds, really, my husband likes to call it trimming the fat when I'm in editing mode and trying to, really get to, like you said, the heart of the story. And yes, I went off on a tangent here. What can I take here? What can I, hone down and weed whack?
Yeah. Is it hard to cut thousands of words from a manuscript? Do you find that even now after you've written so many, is it still hard to do? Or are you like, yep, it's fine. More words will come. These can go. That's no problem.
It depends on the passage, because sometimes I get really attached to some of my, more flowery words. And then if I do, I just cut it and I'll paste it into a deleted words document. And I feel like I haven't deleted it. I've just moved it over. They're still there. Yeah. But in the history of me doing that, I've never gone back. So I should just delete them probably. But it's
But you've saved them.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I want to ask sort of other goals for you and where people can go to keep up. Do you have other plans for more books?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm actually currently working on a romantasy series. It'll be probably a trilogy, which I've thoroughly been enjoying, building a whole nother new world, but this time with more alien characters. They'll have some magical animal sidekicks. So I've been thoroughly enjoying that.
Good. So if people are going to want to know more about the books you've written and look for new releases when those become available, purchase what books you have out, Beyond the Next Star and Sight Beyond the Sun, where can they go to find that information?
Yes, you can find me online at authormelodyjohnson.com. I have a blog, I have a newsletter, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Wonderful. Well, Melody, thank you very much for chatting with me yet again on the podcast, and I wish you luck with everything that you've got going on and the rest of your writing journey.
Thank you very much.
Next up is my conversation with Leah Miles. While Leah's had stories published in several anthologies, she is currently working on her debut novel, or to be more exact, her debut romantic suspense series. Leah Miles, thank you for chatting with me today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about your debut novel, Baby Concealed, and you'll explain exactly what that title means in just a second. But what can you tell us about your book?
Well, this is my debut novel. I am published in several anthologies on Amazon with my First Coast Romance Writers. We do fundraising anthologies, and I'm a part of every one we've done so far. I love writing anthology stories, short stories, and novellas. But Baby Concealed is a book I've been working on for a little while. I'm very excited about it because it kicks off a 7-book series that I'm doing called Seal and Shelter. And the SEAL is, of course, for Navy SEAL. And who doesn't love a good military story with a hero, take charge women, and a man who's going to protect them whether they want to be protected or not. And this is the first book. I have the rest plotted, and they will all hopefully come out in the next few years. In this one, it's just like the title says, it's Baby Concealed. I have a young woman, and her character arc, she goes from being an insecure, I don't know how to do things woman to she becomes a mother unexpectedly. He doesn't know about the child because it was a romantic weekend for her 21st birthday fling, and she met him in California, and she went back where she lived in Texas. And the storyline is she doesn't have any money, so she can't go look for him, and she didn't get his full name, and he didn't get her full name. But 2 years later, fast forward, which is where the book actually starts, she is a nurse sitting with an elderly woman, and her employer gets murdered in front of her. Her phone rings because it's in the room next to the lady. And when the phone rings, the killer picks it up. And of course, her babysitter says her full name. So now she has to go on the run with her child because the killer knows her name and knows she lives not too far away because she didn't even have a car and she was looking after the woman who turned out to be his stepmother. And this is her journey. And she, has to, pull up her socks and get to California. And she goes and finds a friend that she was with when she met him, and together they find a way to find him. I mean, the military bases, she had a nickname and she had a first name, so she was able to locate him. And then he, of course, is going to take care of her, but she doesn't want to be taken care of. She wants to stand on her own feet, but she needs help. And he does provide that in his team eventually. Lots of things happen, and the killer is really terrible, and there's a big twist at the end that you won't see coming.
So this is book 1. This is the start of the series.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your plans for the series, because 7 books is ambitious. You're going to be doing this for a while.
Yes, I'm very excited about it. This is I've read a lot of military authors and a lot of authors that do protection agencies. So my series is SEAL and Shelter, because I have a protection agency called Sheltering Arms, and I have the characters cross over. The first 4 books, all of them are standalone, but the characters do cross over. The next 3 after this one is 3 sisters, and some of the heroes come from the protection agency and some come from the same SEAL team as my hero in Baby Concealed. And so, yes, I will be doing this for a while. The second one's written, the third one's halfway, but it's when you're doing something you enjoy.
Yeah.
I work full time. My husband and I have a new B&B business. We're very busy people, but when you have something that you really want to do, you have characters in your head saying, write my story, then you have to do it.
Right. When the series is done, is the idea that people could pick up a book at any point in the series and read it, and they don't necessarily need to follow in order.
Absolutely. Each one is standalone.
Okay.
But it's kind of fun. When I read, I like to read a book that, I revisit characters from other stories. So the timeline will be correct, but you don't have to read any of the other books to know what's going on. Okay. But if somebody has a baby in book 1, that kid's going to be older in book 4.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, I want to ask about the spark for this series. People talk about where'd you get inspiration, and I think that's great, but I'm always interested in that one thing that made you think, okay, this can be a story. Like I've got it here. What was that spark that you thought, this is what I build the stories around?
My spark was military and police officers. I don't think they get enough good recognition, and my first thought was I wanted to write a military romance. I read a lot of Suzanne Brogman, J.M. Madden. I have not been in the military, but a lot of my family has. And I wanted something very positive. I wanted something that showed the military, the police officers, everybody in a good, not everybody, but the people who are, upholding and protecting in a good light.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah.
It's perspective. There's going to be bad people in every walk of life. There's also going to be good people, strong people.
Right. I'm curious, because you said you've been in a number of anthologies, but this is your debut novel. Has writing always been something you've wanted to do, or is this something you stumbled upon?
No, I've been a writer since I was a little child, and I've got a box of stories that I wrote. When I was 16, I worked at a Winn-Dixie. I've got an entire ode to Winn-Dixie, but that will never be out in public.
No?
And I probably not. Maybe I don't know, who knows. But I do have a lot of books. But when my last child went to college in 2016, I said, it's my time. And I joined Romance Writers of America, First Coast Romance Writers Online, because I wanted to do all the things. And I went to a lot of craft classes. A lot of people say, I want to write a book. Writing a book is a skill. It's a craft that you learn, like you learn to play the guitar. You don't just pick it up and you're whoever. You can't just pick up a piece of paper and a pen and write a book. It's impossible. You have to learn. You have to educate yourself. There's all kinds of resources out there. You just have to work towards it. And that's why this book has been a culmination of a lot of research and a lot of time. I had to watch a lot of Navy SEAL on TV, and that was nice. That was hard work to watch all that.
Something you'd recommend? Is that research
I highly recommend that. And the show is called The Last Ship. That was amazing.
Okay. So after this 7-book series, because admittedly it'll be a little while before they're all done and they're all out. Do you have other goals? Do you have other ideas, or are you someone who's like, this is what I'm focused on, I'll wait until it's all done before I think about the next thing?
No, I'm one of those people that works on 3 books at the same time.
Goodness. Okay.
I just finished a 25K novella for an anthology release on October 14th, and it's based on the TV show Ghosts.
Okay.
And it's my own castle and my own people. It's not, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's a house full of ghosts and some living people, and they have ghost powers. And another author who's here today, she and I are writing in that, and we're going to open it up as a world for anybody who wants to write in our world. And they self-publish, and we add it to the world. My anthology stories, most of them are tied together, and that was my first paranormal, but most of them are tied together with a different SEAL team. And so I like things to relate.
Okay. But you're not afraid to try different genres or different styles?
I'll try it all. It's fun. Writing is a relaxation for me. It's like starting a new story is like eating a piece of delicious cake. You just want to just sit down and enjoy it and savor it and do something different, do something new.
Try a different piece of cake the next time.
Right. Because I'm an insurance agent by day. I got to be something else at night.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm curious, inspirations for you, other writers that you've liked, or other like shows or movies, or do you find yourself thinking, how would this look, or how would so-and-so write this scene?
Sometimes, and a lot of times, the old adage of where you feel like, oh, I'm not good enough because this person is so good. I'd listened to a book on tape by Riley Edwards the other day, and she's so good at the physical scenes. I'm not as good at that as her. Suzanne Brockman is amazing. J.M. Madden. There's so many. I even like David Baldacci, Tom Clancy. I read all the classics of in the military genres of classics, I guess. But I'll read just about anything. And I read a lot of sci-fi, but I don't write any sci-fi at this point.
So if people want to stay up to date with you, where can they find you? And when the book is ready to come out, where can they go? Where can they pre-order it at this stage? How do they stay up to date?
Well, right now I have an author page on Amazon, Leah Miles Author, and a website, leahmilesauthor.com. You can go there and sign up for my newsletter. And I send out a newsletter once a month. I'm not going to inundate you with mail, but I update you on new releases. Like I said, I had a story coming out in October, and I have, 10 different things on Amazon right now, but they're all fundraisers. I'm not getting any money from those, but that's okay. It's all for a good cause. It's for author education.
So, and anybody interested in a Navy SEAL series can dive into yours when it's ready. Certainly start pre-ordering now.
Right. I'm publishing this one with an actual publisher. It's one reason it took so long. I tried to get an agent and a publisher, and I entered a contest. Georgia Romance Writers, which I'm also a member of, has a Maggie's contest, and I won last year. And the judge was an agent, and she agreed to represent me for this book. And Black Rose Writing picked me up as an author on their list of authors. I'm very, very pleased with them.
Well, congratulations. And Leah, thank you for chatting with me today on the podcast. And I wish you luck with the whole series, but in particular, Baby Concealed, your first one, and the rest of your writing journey.
Thank you.
If you thought Leah's mention of her paranormal romance story involving ghosts and a haunted house sounded intriguing, then you'll love this next conversation with Vanessa Victoria Kilmer. Vanessa's new book is a paranormal romance set in that world that she and Leah built, and Vanessa shares a more in-depth look at the series, the setting, and the lore. Vanessa Victoria Kilmer, thank you very much for chatting with me today on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
What we're going to do is talk about your new novella, Love, Lost, and Found.
Yes.
Tell us about this book.
Okay, so this is the first book in a new series called The Ghosts of Border House, and it's a paranormal romance similar to the TV shows called Ghosts, which probably people are familiar with, where there are a bunch of ghosts living in one house that this couple has bought, and it's the relationship of the ghosts to the people living and the living people visiting there. My story, Love Lost and Found, is set in Scotland, and the house is called Border House, and it's a family home that's been owned by same family for centuries, going all the way back to the year 1100. And Sarah May Stewart is a reincarnated witch who has been invited to the manor house by her college friend to do a seance with the ghosts living in the house, because the father who owns the house wants to make the house a destination place for visitors. So he's going to use the ghosts as a way to sell the, come stay at my house. We have these ghosts here. You can experience that. Sarah May was originally from the year 1566, and she had a lover and soulmate named Thomas, who was the manservant to Mary Queen of Scots' lover, and Thomas was murdered by the king's men. And Thomas believed that Sarah May turned him in to the king's men. So he cursed her with his dying breath because he wanted revenge against her for doing this. And she has come back to the house to try and break the curse. But she doesn't realize that Thomas is an actual ghost still at the house. So,
well, that's tricky.
Yes. So they have to resolve their issues and try and either come together or never be together ever again, because they are supposed to be soulmates.
Oh.
So.
Oh dear. Okay. So I have a number of questions. First, does the seance go smoothly? And I say that because I would guess, rarely does a seance go perfectly smoothly, right? But does it go smoothly? And how do the guests feel, or how the ghosts feel about becoming basically a tourist attraction? Are they excited, or maybe not so much?
So the seance does not go smoothly. And it's sort of like the TV shows, it's sort of tongue-in-cheek. Mm-hmm. Each of the ghosts have very unique ghostly habits. For instance, Thomas, when he was alive, he was famous for making the real fluffy ruffs that the people of the time, the nobility, wore around their necks. As a ghost, he still makes those ruffs, but the living can only see them as Granny's doilies. So there are doilies all over the manor house, and so it's that kind of silly humor. Uh-huh. And the living people involved in the seance have a relationship. Each one has a relationship with one of the different ghosts that live in the house, and so there's humor coming from their contact with these particular ghosts. And the ghosts, of course, take themselves very seriously.
Sure.
And so they are not happy being sort of a carnival experience for people coming to, visit the house. So.
Right. What was the spark for you when you decided, okay, this is the hook for the book. This is the thing that I start writing this story around. Do you remember what that was?
My particular story, the spark was Mary Queen of Scots.
Okay.
And the way that, so I write mostly about how the people closest to us are usually the people who hurt us the most. And of course we feel that the most because we've trusted them and, we love them. And I try and, through my writing, work out how we overcome the pain from the hurt caused by the people that were supposed to claim that they loved us the most. And Mary Queen of Scots' story reminds me of that because she was betrayed by so many people for her whole life. She had 3 men that she was married to, and each one of them did her wrong. And, her cousin, Queen Elizabeth, finally killed her. And, she just had a horrible life. But I didn't want to write about her. I like writing about everyday people.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose to write about these servants who would be like Sarah May, the heroine of my story, was a maid to Mary Queen of Scots. So she knew a lot of what was going on, but she was just a regular person. And Thomas was the manservant to the supposed lover,
right,
for Mary Queen of Scots. And so I liked, just regular people, but they have, regular people have dramatic lives. And, they are hurt just like, we all know Mary Queen of Scots' story.
Right.
So I wanted to tell,
Right.
about the people that would be around her.
Interesting. So how much research did you need to do then into that time period, the location, seances, what have you? Did you know all about all of this stuff and just sat down and were able to write all of it, or was there some research involved?
There was some research involved, but I love history.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was Austrian. If you think Sound of Music,
Mm-hmm.
that's where she was from. And I spent my first 10 years of life living over there. So I was immersed in all these really old historical places. So I have an interest in that already. And then, of course, I love British royalty. Who doesn't, and so I've read about that a lot already. And then I also have an interest in occult ideas. I read tarot cards. I have a crystal ball, and, witches, were a big thing, especially in Europe. So I've already had a lot of interest in that, but I did need to research Mary Queen of Scots' lover.
Mm.
And then also there's actual house. It's called Tucker House in Scotland, which is the oldest continuously occupied house in Scotland. It was built in 1107. So I did have to research that.
So when you write, because as you mentioned, this is paranormal romance, obviously there's some ghosts involved and so on. When you write that kind of a story, do you stick to the general lore around that subject matter? Do you say, okay, everybody believes ghosts behave this way, a seance goes like this, are these kinds of characters, people? Do you stick with what everybody knows, or do you decide, okay, I'm going to make my own rules? Here's what I need. Here's what I want. Ghosts will do this. Witches will do this. This is how my seance goes. Do you try and just make it familiar to capture what everybody knows, or is it a case of this is how I want it to be, may not line up with everybody's initial thoughts, but they'll get on board?
A lot of it is very, I think, familiar to most people
Mm-hmm.
that have an interest in it. I look at it from an intuitive way about the way I think that it would work.
Yeah.
And if I try and use what is most people are familiar with, because then they'll be comfortable with it and I think they'll believe it more. But then I might, throw something a little different in there, just to make it a little bit different.
Right. Do you find any resistance or do people, when they learn that you write paranormal romance, do they always ask you, do you believe in ghosts? What do you personally believe? Do you find that there's a resistance if you write about it? Clearly you must believe it, or are people curious about that? Do you get that question?
I do get, I think it kind of runs all around. There are people that know me, and they think that I believe in everything because I have an interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I like to play that up. Like the house, I used to live in New Jersey, and the house that I lived in, everybody said there was a ghost. And so, of course, yeah, I had an old man ghost living in my house. And, I might say it with a smile, but, the ghost was in this one corner and my dog always looked in that corner. So, maybe there was a ghost there. Who knows, watching the house. I do read tarot cards for people. So there are people that, think I have, I think, more rational explanations for it. I don't think magic and science are that far apart, because I think that physics backs up a lot of the things that we used to call magic. So to me, they're not that real different. So I don't have a hard time saying that I do believe in them. Like I believe in Carl Jung's collective intelligence. So that's how we can read tarot cards, is because, we tap into this group think. And so we can, use that. And then, you can also read body language and stuff like that, which is a lot part of it.
Yeah.
So.
And it makes for really fertile ground for storytelling, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. It absolutely does.
Good. Okay, so this is Love, Lost and Found is a novella. You mentioned it's the first book in the Ghost of Border House series. If people want to learn more about you in the book and keep track of what's coming, where should they go to find you and that information?
I am all over the place online, and everything is my full name. VanessaVictoriaKilmer.com is my website. My email is Vanessa V. Kilmer. Well, I actually have a Gmail email that's Vanessa Victoria Kilmer also. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and they're all under my name.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Vanessa Victoria Kilmer, for chatting with me today. And I want to wish you luck with Love, Lost, and Found and the rest of your writing journey.
Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
Last, but by no means least, is my conversation with Vickey Wollan. Vickey is the author of a new romantic adventure series, as well as several Christmas stories, in case you're looking for one this time of year. And she has accomplished all of this while living with dyslexia. Vickey Wollan, thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
What we're going to do today is talk a little bit about your new book, Her Mentor's Revenge. Tell us about this book.
So Her Mentor's Revenge is adventure romance, and it has a little bit of mystery and suspense in it. My protagonist is Lainey Shea. She's an archaeologist, treasure hunter, and she started a new business, but she's having a trouble because someone is trying to ruin that business before it gets started. And so she goes to the police to have them take a statement, and lo and behold, the cop who takes her statement, she knows him. His name is Declan Donovan, and she was childhood rivals with him. Yes. And in the meantime, when he's taken the statement, it turns out he has a family treasure, and he hires her to try to find it. So they go out into the field, and unfortunately, Declan gets to see firsthand what this revenge is coming at them. So they go through all of these trials and tribulations, and in the meantime, his family is all cops, and they try to come help. And they're trying to help, but they're trying to make it worse, and it just gets all twisted. And Lainey also has her bestest buddy who's with her all the time, Joan. She is the sidekick. And so they survive and the family drama and all of that to try to find the silver.
So hard enough job on her own, just trying to do what she does.
Right.
But then you throw in a childhood enemy, let's say, and his family members and all that kind of stuff, only to complicate things.
Right. So it's enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
The plot.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 5'10" and he's like 6 foot. And the reason they became rivals was because he would make her it when they played tag as children. And he also has a reputation for being a bad boy, but that's not his reality. Everybody thinks he's a car thief. How did a car thief become a cop? And so there's that level and layers of his personality that she has to work through to begin to like him again.
Right.
And then get her
and sort of
attracted
challenge what she's known or what she thinks she knows about him to date.
There's another thing with her. She has dated clients in the past, and she's set, never going to date a client again. And there's another client who's like, oh, but he's so cute. And he's so, So she's torn within herself.
Oh, so she's not perfect either.
Oh, no. One of the things, she actually is pouring the rain, and the revenge is trying to rear its head, and she turns around into the rain and cries, but it's the rain on my face. I'm not crying.
Right.
But so she has to like pull herself up by her bootstraps and carry on and be in charge.
So why archaeologist, treasure hunter? What was the spark for that? What drew you to say that line of work for your main character?
So I like when women do well in a male-dominated industry. And so both of those are male-dominated industries. So she's really smart. She's also really attractive and really athletic. And it's like everybody hates her because she's seemingly perfect, but she's not, right? And her father was the archaeologist. And so she did that to kind of follow in his footsteps. And unfortunately, she was on a dig site with her father, and her brother passed away. He had an accident on the dig site, and he wanted to be a treasure hunter. And so she's honoring his memory by doing both.
Interesting. Okay. I'd like to hear about authors' inspiration for their books or whatever, but what always fascinates me is that spark, that moment when you realize, okay, there's a book here. Like this is what I write the book around. Do you remember what that spark was for this one?
So I went researching for treasures. I mean, how do you find something like that? And I wanted it to be historically accurate, even though it's a fiction story. And I had watched a TV show about the fur trade in Canada. And this book takes place on an island that's in between Michigan and Canada. And there's not that much water in between there. So they actually got paid, the fur traders, in silver. And so the silver tokens in this book, they're silver beaver-shaped tokens, are real. It's a real thing, really happened. And so what happens in the made-up story is the fur traders just get paid and they're on their way back home, and pirates or thieves steal the treasure from them first thing in the morning. They jump in a boat and they row across the water. And so they were able to hide the silver before they got caught. And now the family lore hands down that story, and Declan wants to retrieve that silver on behalf of his mother, who has MS and isn't able to get out and about. So they're making like a videography of this all, and that's the gift for her to be able to live vicariously for him and his brothers to go out in the field.
So do you normally, for your books, do you normally find something out in the world that you find interesting and decide, okay, I'll use that as a basis and then build my story on top of it? Or does the stories develop just randomly, or how do you come upon your stories?
It varies by genre, actually.
Okay, interesting.
So this particular book is the first book in the series, the Laney Shea series, The Treasure Hunter. But I wrote 4 books previously to that were all Christmas. And the reason that inspiration, I was very much an active child, and I love the concept of the mystique, the mysticism, the fun of Christmas. And so I wanted to write a story that brings the inner child out. And so I started with a snowflake, that when you see the snowflake lit, you get to make a wish. And that was the first book in the series, A Snowflake Christmas. The second one is A Snowflake Christmas Nutcracker, and it's the Nutcracker that has the mystic element. The third one is Snowflake Christmas the Elf, and it's Elf on a Shelf. And instead of being the children that get taught by Elf on the Shelf, it ends up being adults.
Oh. we should all behave better.
Yeah. So it depends on the genre.
Oh, interesting. So quite a swing in some regards from writing Christmas stories to this. Friends to enemies may not be that big of a jump, but to set it and come up with the plot line that you have for this series, that seems like a big jump. But did it feel like that big of a leap for you to change that much, or did it the same things apply whether you're writing about Christmas or you're writing about treasure hunting?
A lot of the same things apply. I'm very much plot and character driven, and I try to layer in the emotions. But the way I wanted to start my career, I wanted to try to find a niche that was successful and had a lot of books in it. And so I picked Christmas. I mean, I have Christmas. And I did it backwards. A lot of people write a bunch of stuff and then they throw in a Christmas book. So I wrote the Christmas books first, wanting to launch into a different one. I was hoping to find an audience and Christmas people, readers, other stuff too, right? It was quite a change. I always warned everyone, okay, I'm switching over. It's still sweet contemporary romance, but.
Right. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people do the opposite. They've written about other things and they're like, for fun, I'll write a Christmas story. Interesting way to tackle it. Why not?
Why not?
Why not do it that way? That makes perfect sense. So you said when you were starting your career, when you were taking this on, is writing something you've always wanted to do, or is writing something you've maybe more recently wanted to do?
It's always been in there. Even if I tried to walk away from it, it was still knocking at the door going, hey, I'm still here. So I'm dyslexic. And in high school, I took a writing course, and I would get A over F, meaning A for the story and F for the grammar, because that just wasn't there. And so I'm like, okay, put the writing on a shelf. Went to college and was able to get special services for the dyslexia. And I had that throughout school, but it was the first time it really helped. And now, between paying for an editor and all these different softwares, it's kind of like being dyslexic, put that off. It's not a problem anymore. And so I'm leaning into the creativity and fixing the rest of the stuff on the background.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Do you find, so it sounded like it was a bit of, if not an impediment, then maybe not necessarily something that pushed you forward into writing early. Do you think it was, does the dyslexia feel like something that you've had to overcome in order to write and do the thing you want to do? Or is it just something you live with, you incorporate it, it's just how you proceed?
People living with learning disabilities, they're taught to find coping mechanisms. And to me, the creativity is the coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And so the ups and downs of life and the writing career and everything else, the creativity is always the high.
Right. Did you like reading?
So I started reading late.
Yeah.
I didn't really get into reading until like junior high. I was kind of behind. I was actually in special ed.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be in special ed anymore, so I worked really hard to get out.
Yeah.
And reading was a big part of that.
Yeah. So you've mentioned that this is the first book in a series. Do you have a set number of books planned for the series, or you just plan on writing it until you decide the characters are done?
I keep changing my mind, 3 to 5.
Okay, all right. So they'll let you know, it sounds like, when they're ready to retire.
I want the treasure hunting to be authentic.
Okay.
And so I have to find something something that can really happen.
Right.
Like with the silver.
And something you really want to write about, too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is Her Mentor's Revenge is the first book out in the series. There'll be more coming. If people want to learn more about you and the book, look for the new releases, buy the book, etc., where should they go?
So my website is VickeyWollanAuthor.com. It's VickeyWollan author. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube and Instagram and Threads and Blue Sky and most likely anywhere. Vickey being spelled Vickey, it's easy to find me.
Right. Good.
And I'm on Amazon and KU.
Wonderful. Well, Vickey, thank you for chatting with me today. I wish you luck with Her Mentor's Revenge and the rest of the series, and best of luck with the rest of your writing journey.
Thank you so much.
That's it for my series of conversations with the First Coast romance writers. I'd like to thank all of the guests featured on this episode: Melody Johnson, Leah Miles, Vanessa Victoria Kilmer, and Vickey Wollan. Please check out their books, their websites, and their social media accounts. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you, and please leave reviews if you enjoy their stories. Thank you to the First Coast romance writers, those who were featured in this 2-part series of episodes, and all the other authors I met at their working retreat. It has been my great pleasure to help share their books and stories with you. I recently celebrated this podcast's 7-year anniversary, and I appreciate you being a part of my own writing and podcasting journey. As always, thank you for listening. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Bookshop at the End of the Internet to discover new authors and new books. The Bookshop at the End of the Internet is a podcast dedicated to helping book lovers discover new authors. Like any good bookshop, this podcast features a wide variety of books by the equally varied and interesting authors who felt compelled to write them. This podcast gives you a chance to meet these wonderful writers and discover your next must-read book. Listen to the authors describe their books and tell you their stories in their own words. My interviews feature books from all genres and authors from all walks of life, including those who are indie published as well as those published by small presses and large publishing houses. Looking for unique, not so easy to find books for yourself, a friend, or a book club? Tune into this podcast and find your newest favorite author or maybe a soon-to-be bestseller. This podcast, like all the best bookshops, is filled with all kinds of books and all kinds of authors. Tune in, browse around, find a new author, and discover a new favorite book. You never know what treasures you might find in the bookshop at the end of the internet.